the opportunity to build a golf course from nothing, absolutely nothing, just woods to, what we had vision for this property was pretty special. So I couldn't turn that down. So moved down here August of 2021, and I got here the first day we started clearing trees. I was employee one and been here ever since.
Welcome to Leadership on the Links, the podcast that showcases innovators in golf course management and the issues they face. I'm your host, Tyler Bloom. In Leadership on the Links, you hear the stories of people shaping the industry from their first swing to their dream match. You feel like you're on the course playing with your most inspiring colleagues, having great conversations, digging into insights and sharing a few laughs. Our industry is changing. As a leader, you need to keep up on everything from trends to technology to best practices. Together, we'll continue to build world-class clubs and teams. Let's get to it. Enjoy.
All right. Well, I'm super excited to be joined today by Nick Roth, who has a really unique special property that's had an incredible story and rise and really an entrance and a rise at the same time in golf at the Tree Farm. Many of you may know some of the background around that, but Nick, thanks for joining us. And I'd like to give you the floor to kind of introduce yourself, your background, and a little bit about the Tree Farm.
Yeah. So my name is Nick Roth. I'm the director of greens and grounds at the Tree Farm. Previously was at Oakland Hills in Detroit, Michigan. So I was there for 3 seasons working for Phil Kafari. I went through
come on that too.
That's another episode. So yeah, I was there for about 3 seasons and went through the whole project with Gil and Jim and worked with Kai as well. So that was a great experience. And before that, I was in Northwest Ohio for a year as a superintendent. And before then, kind of Cleveland area, a couple clubs, and then interned at Fox Chapel in Pittsburgh.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Worked for Jason there. And funny, I just reconnected with Jason, who works for Nick Mazzella now. So it's funny how it all comes full circle.
Yeah, Jason and I know each other extremely, extremely well from Oakmont days, and then obviously as a peer friend within Mazzella partnership. So really cool.
Yeah. So I kind of got connected with the Tree Farm through really working at Oakland Hills, and Phil kind of gave me a little bit of a nudge to reach out to Kai. And I'd worked with Kai 2 times in the past at 2 different clubs, Oakland Hills being the second time. And got to spend 9 months with him there. He ran the project for Gil and Jim. And I just gave Kai a call. I knew he had got the job as the architect, and just to see if they needed a superintendent. And it kind of just progressed from there, and made a visit down here in April of 2021. And it was kind of set in stone after that. And so funny how career progressions go. I never had aspirations to move south, and but the opportunity to build a golf course from nothing, absolutely nothing, just woods to, what we had vision for this property was pretty special. So I couldn't turn that down. So moved down here August of 2021, and I got here the first day we started clearing trees. I was employee one and been here ever since.
Right into the fire to start it out better. Was most of the planning already done and like sort of the course design vision already kind of cemented?
We were still going through permitting processes. So when I got here, we actually hadn't even received land disturbance permits. So we could clear trees, but we couldn't dig stumps yet. So there was a lot of permitting things still ongoing when I was here, which was great to be a part of that. Kind of had never been exposed to that. So there was still a lot of things in the works at that point, just from permitting and planning. And we kind of did it in a unique way where most golf course architects are giving you a plan. You see this funny picture of these architects posing with their plans. That's not how Kai works. We don't have plans. He's just a unique person that has this skill set to just go in the field and build things. So him and Zach kind of had a big collaboration and just did a lot of things on the ground in the field. So it was a unique build for sure.
How is, I guess a couple of questions is, how does that design philosophy evolve, like in the dirt and kind of the vision of the Tree Farm? How did that shift? And then as a superintendent, now responsible, where was your head at as that was evolving day to day? I mean, I haven't unfortunately been to the property yet, but I've seen so many pictures and some really unique shaping design style. And I'm sure it throws fits for day-to-day maintenance.
Yeah. I think as a guy who golf course architecture, it was cool to be able to geek out every day and watch the most talented shapers in the world and Zach and these guys work on this stuff, but also as a person who's a little OCD and you're trying to get organized, you're like, I kind of need to know what we're doing so I can plan. And, like just simply from an equipment side of things, I ordered our equipment when I was still working in Detroit based off of a generic plan they had for acreage and green size. And I didn't know what we needed, but I ordered to the best of my abilities. And fortunately, we're re-upping next month and getting new equipment kind of based off what we actually have on the ground. But for 3 years, we've been operating with equipment that was a complete shot in the dark of what we thought we needed. So that's just, one aspect, but a lot of different aspects from kind of blending architecture and golf maintenance. The first 2 greens, they designed the slopes around them were so severe, you couldn't walk mow them, you couldn't triplex. So kind of explaining it to these guys, the philosophy of the design was very based off heathland golf that you'd see in England, which kind of has some funky shapes and ridges and ditches and things like that. And but a lot of them are mowed at rough height, so they can push mow them or they can use a rotary mower. So explaining them that, hey, if we're mowing this at a 1/4 inch, it's a little difficult to do this, and I'm fine with difficult. I always told them it's my job to figure it out, but there's a give and a take with that. So kind of blending those two was finding a happy medium.
What was sort of the biggest surprise to you, maybe during like the construction side of it, maintenance, or just sort of seeing the golf course come together? Because I think that's probably as much of fun of everything as just seeing like the tree farm becoming a legitimate operation and organization, let alone like seeing the golf course come alive itself.
Yeah, I mean, this could be a long answer, but to keep it simple, I'm from Ohio, so being from the Midwest was not really fully comprehending the weather down here, not from a heat aspect, but the thunderstorms you get in the summertime. And that was our biggest hardship from the growing. We had a brutal summer and, kind of went into it with a plan of, hey, we're going to sprig as much as we can from a fairway standpoint. And, sprigs, you're looking at like 2-3 weeks before you get legitimate tacking to where they're not going to wash. And if anyone's seen our property, it's pretty severe. So we had significant erosion, washout issues that we had to deal with kind of throughout the project, and eventually got to a point where, we just started sodding things because it wasn't worth the trouble anymore. And we kind of had a target open date we wanted to hit. So really just the weather not cooperating. And that's every construction project essentially, is you're at the mercy of Mother Nature. But that was a huge thing for us. And it kind of changed a little bit of that design philosophy as well of, kind of going for this heathland, sandhills blend with more open sandscape. And it kind of transitioned into more, we've got to figure out a plant material for erosion control in some of these native areas, because we had 300 acres of bare soil, of what used to be woods on severe topography. So that's a problem. And you got to figure out how to get ground cover and then how to make that ground cover playable for golf as well. So a lot of research into that and figuring that out.
I'm assuming from like just a sustainability, environmental stewardship, that's been a pretty key factor in the development of the club and the maintenance of the golf course. Anything unique in that areas that you guys have been doing, from a sustainability, environmental stewardship side?
Yeah, that's kind of a whole new side of things that's fun about this place is the native areas and the wooded areas, things like that. Traditionally golf courses are a little black and white. You kind of got fairways, rough, native, greens, collards, all that stuff. Here, it's kind of like you get off the grass and the lines are very blurred. And that's what we're looking for too. So kind of like when I went back to saying about the native areas and finding these plant materials, I mean, hours of research. We just planted 7,000 native plugs at the clubhouse of these varieties that I'd never heard of, but looking into and seeing them in containers and all these things. Aiken's a unique area. We have a 21-acre urban forest in Aiken. It's one of the largest in the country, and spending a lot of time pre-construction walking through the woods and identifying native plant material that we could utilize as well. And we work with a forester, and we do controlled burns every 2 years, which helps promote the native plants and kind of work out the woody species. And we work with the South Carolina Wildlife Federation. So we kind of do a lot of things to be good stewards to the environment and really promote this pine forest ecosystem and kind of get a product similar to what you'd see, like the Sandhills National Forest is a great example. And that's kind of what we're trying to promote in our native areas.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. I feel like, I don't know, going out on a limb and saying this, but it feels like the tree farm from the conceptual design to how it's evolved is sort of influential to the next generation of golf courses. I feel like there is a lot of elements that have been brought into, the golf course itself, and let alone the organization as well, is going to have impact on future golf courses. Do you see it that way? Is that a conversation that happens, or is it just like, hey, it happens if it happens? It's not really like our intent, but there's just been so much really cool buzz about the golf course and the environment that's being created there as well for the members, right? The golfers, like that vibe is really, really strong.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I mean, and it's full circle with not just our department, but food and beverage, member services, pro shop, everyone. It's really about, from the membership side of things, just incredible hospitality. That's what we're trying to promote. Really, we're a golf and hospitality operation. It's essentially what it is, which is totally different than, what I've essentially been exposed to in my career. So we do a lot of training with our staff, going to all different meetings, and a lot of videos and talking about these examples of great hospitality and how to take that extra step that these members have a great experience. And that's, writing down what certain groups like, so the next time they come, you can cater to them and things like that. And then, on our side of things, we're kind of a little more monotonous, and we're trying to produce a great golf course every day. But from a design aspect, and, I think we're in a very different golf course with, just the native areas, but also we don't have a lot of bunkers, which is unique. We have 50 formal bunkers, which is awesome. Low compared to standards of most places.
Bunker crew, that seems like a pretty easy roll.
Yeah, no, it is. We've got some aggressive slopes to fly on in places, but these guys are really good, so they've got it figured out. But I think some restraint on the bunkering, and then really a lot of restraint on the green. It's very natural. We moved just such a small amount of dirt building the golf course. I think anyone who kind of understands architecture could come out and see that it kind of was already sitting there. In the beginning, we always said, like, we'd have to screw this up because the land was that good, and it kind of just lent itself to good golf courses with the features in the landforms. Essentially, we built greens, tees, bunkers, and that was it.
That's fascinating. Talk about a little bit about sort of the team there. I mean, what has that process been like, building a team from scratch? It's a lot different than coming into an existing team where now you've really got to like scale this appropriately with the maintenance that's being developed as the course matures, as you bring members on, right? So talk us through what that experience has been like.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes all back to planning what's the golf course going to look like, because then that has to fit to the model of what is your staff going to look like and how big does your maintenance shop need to be. So in the beginning, we always were like, oh, it's going to be kind of minimal, 18, 20 guys. We're at 27, 28 in the summertime. So we're, exponentially larger than we were anticipating. And if we ever expand, it's going to just grow bigger and bigger. So, but yeah, I mean, I was a lone ranger for, 5 months by myself, and then brought a guy down with me from Oakland Hills, and then hired Colby, who's my current golf course superintendent. He was fresh out of school at Ori Georgetown. Yeah, it's unique because, like you said, you go into certain scenarios and you're inheriting a staff that might do things differently than you would do. And you think it might be easier to hire a staff brand new, but you go through the same challenges. You get a lot of turnover, trying to figure out where you're going to pull your laborers from. Is it local? Is it visa? Can you even set that up in the time frame you're looking to in a grow in? So we kind of had a year and a half of challenges with staffing, but the last 2.5 years, we've been great. And we had a lot of guys actually stay on from our construction crew, about 7 of them. So they really enjoyed working here and didn't like to travel. And those guys are so bought in, and they know everything about this place because they built the greens, tees, bunkers, and they're kind of the backbone of our staff. And they're just such a value to have around.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting, we've been a part of a few startup processes and kind of seeing how those teams kind of come together. It's like, it's like anything else. It's a group of misfits, and how the team's sometimes organized isn't always textbook. It comes from referrals. It comes from, like you said, people that were on the construction crew. Clearly, obviously, this is a pretty attractive role for an up and coming assistant, somebody to really kind of sink their teeth into a new design. And beyond just the agronomy side, again, I come back to the organizational side of building an organization. It's really kind of a unique view that probably not a lot of people have. When you kind of look at something that I didn't even really think about, is like developing the maintenance facility from scratch. What was that process like? what sort of learning curves didn't you expect, or things that you didn't expect to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I did quite a few visits. That was the great part about being early, is I was able to do a lot of visits, and I went and saw a lot of properties, talked to a lot of people, and that was the maintenance facility. I'd say was the one thing that was kind of started early on and kind of had a footprint set in stone already, that I didn't have kind of the full ability to do what I wanted. But we have a great facility, and it's better than 99% of people in the country have, and it's just going to need to be bigger if we expand. But that was the most difficult thing of, like I said, not knowing truly what is your staffing going to be. Is the break room big enough? Do we have enough lockers? Do we have the office space we're going to need? A unique thing is actually all of our food and beverage deliveries come to our shop. We have cold storage, and it's right behind my head here is the walk-in cooler. So big walk-in cooler is because they don't want trucks going to the clubhouse because it's right through the cabins and everything. So, and that kind of goes back to the vision of what they want for the members. They don't want people to see deliveries coming in. So that's a unique or now you're hiring a whole nother system. They're just running things in the kitchen and throwing out trash. So just a unique aspect of maintaining the tree farm.
I'm sure it keeps you on your toes. You talked a little bit about, I'm going to go back on to Phil just a little bit, and we won't pick on him too much here, but what were some of the key things that you learned at Oakland Hills? Because there's a lot of work there, right? So I've been there, seen both golf courses. Obviously, they continue to grow, new maintenance facility. They're hosting all these events, but that construction project there, the renovation work there was incredible. And I'm just kind of curious how that sort of experience there really maybe helped persuade your perspective on the industry, maybe persuaded you to kind of look at something like a tree farm, because it's a lot different than maybe being a superintendent in Northwest Ohio, I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've always liked construction, and I like staying busy, and, golf maintenance in general can get a little monotonous over time. So that was the big draw. And obviously working for Phil in a top 20 facilities, that was a huge draw as well. But going through that project, just seeing everything from the ground up. I mean, it was obviously a restoration renovation, but it was as much as you could physically do in a restoration renovation without blowing up the entire golf course. So just being able to see everything, and not only that, but we're maintaining the North Course. And I was the North Course superintendent for the majority of that project, which meant, making sure that thing operated, not to mention COVID was going on, and we did 30,000 rounds on the North Course. So the place is jammed while we're doing a project, and all these different things going on in the world at that time. So a lot of multitasking. That was like the biggest thing I learned from Phil was, I was a good agronomist, but to learn how to multitask and manage people, and then see the project management aspect of things, that was the biggest takeaways that I had, because you got to multitask when you got two facilities. One of them's open, one of them is completely under the knife. So spent a lot of time on the North Course, and then when we finished putting greens to bed, would be on the South Course working with Gil on greens, or working with the drainage guys, or mowing fresh shot, or top dressing, whatever it is to help those guys get the job done. Is just being able to be a part of that project was special.
Any good stories? I'm sure. Is there one good story that you think of from Phil's perspective in terms of, again, it could be anything from the mentorship side to kind of managing that project that you've taken with you today?
I think being able...
Other than Nick Saban quotes. I know that.
No, I think just his ability to be able to call an audible and feel confident in his decision making as a superintendent. He saw the writing on the wall kind of mid-project that we were going to need some help to finish, and being able to make that decision and get LeBar in there. And that was kind of what helped push us through the end of the project, and then make other decisions like, we were going to sod the last couple fairways because of our timing, and things like that stuck with me when it came to our project. Was, you got to think about, you got a budget, but you got a timeline too, and you got to figure out what your client wants. And, if you want to open at this timeline, we got to make this decision and spend this amount of money. And, those were some big takeaways that I had from that project.
Talking about kind of your team and kind of what you see the vision for the tree farm a little bit, obviously we're working with you, and have previously worked with you on an assistant roles. What do you see as like the potential for somebody, coming there as it relates to their career growth, what things they'd be exposed to, what are some unique aspects about the job that maybe don't show up on a resume, or not a resume, a job advertisement, a job profile?
Yeah, we're, like everything else I've said, we're just a unique club, and we might be new, but it doesn't mean that we're not always doing something. That it's kind of like the Kobe quote of, job's not finished. I feel like we're never finished with what we're doing. Like, this past summer, we went and built 3 bunkers on number 1, and we built our putting green, and we did grass line changes on 2 and 3, and just little tweaks of you're trying to make that product you built as perfect as possible. And, things change. People play that brand new golf course, and you figure out, hey, it's playing a little different than we intended it to play. And we're going to make some change, adding a bunker to changing a tee or putting in a new tee or whatever. That's kind of the club. We're going to constantly probably tweak around. I think you look at the best clubs in the world, Pine Valleys and places of that such, that in their inception changed and tweaked for years to get to that final product. And that's kind of the place we are. So I think we're always going to be doing work in the summer, and we close in the summer too. So we close for 3 months. So that's the most exciting part of my season, because it's like 3-month aerification week, and we just shred the place to bits and do these projects. We've done almost 15 miles of drainage and fairways the last 2 summers. And, and now this past summer, we basically tidied up all the cabins at Clubhouse. We opened that November, in the final phases of landscaping and lighting up there. So that's something going on. And assistants get a lot of it. Transplanted 50 trees. That was kind of our one assistant's job for a couple of weeks, was he's managing those guys and trying to give all these guys roles that they can get in and manage with contractors and staff and so forth. That's a huge benefit. And, get these guys as much experience as they can. And we're just such a seasonal club with, the summer, like I said, our closure, and then we're open in September and the grass is growing, and then we're dormant. We don't overseed. So we go through these very seasonal swings where it's not like up north where it's a sprint. And that was the biggest change for me, was I had to dial myself back a little bit, because it's a 12-month a year grind. It's not an 8-month sprint and then you plow snow for 3 months. It's a little different down here. So trying to rewire my brain a little bit in the first couple seasons to really figure out the seasonality of the club and how we can operate and get everyone at a happy place.
That's really interesting you say that. I hear that a lot from guys that transition from the north down to the south, and it's a different work style, it's a different work climate than maybe what we're used to up in the north. So when you sort of look at maybe the next 2, 3, 4 years, in terms of the growth of the membership of the organization, like what excites you? Like what hasn't been accomplished yet that is sort of on the horizon?
Yeah, I think you're always like trying to get to that finish line, even though there's probably never one. You're always trying to get better. I think in aspect, like the biggest thing for me on the golf course is like the turf conditions are very good, but it's the native areas they take forever to get. And I don't know if you ever get them perfect, but that's the biggest thing for me that I see out there is, I could have a crew of 20 guys all winter that worked on native and planting and moving plant material from the woods and chunking with a skid steer. I mean, I talk about it with Kai, our architect, nonstop. We always talk about it. There's a million things like that we could do. But from an expansion standpoint, I think you look at a lot of these clubs similar to us, and they've got short courses and things like that. And I think that's a real reality for us in the future. And that's something we've talked about. And, nothing's set in stone. But from our staff, I think there's exciting opportunities with that to be a part of that. And then also have additional staff that can move into those roles as superintendents and assistants of more aspects of our property. And with that probably comes additional accommodations and food and beverage and all things like that, which we're associated with. So I think there's a lot of exciting things on the horizon.
Yeah. I've enjoyed kind of getting somewhat of a view of this, maybe not as intimate, obviously, as you, but it's really cool to see. And yeah, congrats on all of the success and the growth of it. I want to chip in or go into our next segment, which we like to call chip shots, a little bit more fun, lighthearted conversations. So I always like to start off with this question. If you had to pick your favorite foursome, who would it be with and where would it be at?
And that's probably pick my brother, because I love playing with my brother. Just went to Scotland with him this past summer. And then probably Phil and Chewy. I think that'd be probably a riot right there, those three. And then where would we play? Well, go top of my bucket list is probably National Golf Links, but we're going to Bandon Dunes with Phil next year, so that might also be on the top too.
I'll have to get my invite for that. What's going on?
Yours might be the next year.
Yeah. This is a really random question, but does a tree farm have an official drink at the clubhouse? And if it is, what's it called?
So we don't have an official drink. We kind of have a rotating cocktail menu, but we do have these Palomas that have, tree farm logo. It's kind of like a rusted looking can with the tree and moon that is a hit in the membership. They go through those like crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome. If there was one thing about people that the best way for people to appreciate the course on their first visit, like, is there one thing that you'd say you've got to pay attention to this that maybe the average person wouldn't know?
I don't think that there's like one thing you can hone in on. I think it's just the place from the moment you drive in. I mean, you just feel like you're immersed in something just otherworldly from the moment you get in the front gates. And I think it's just hard to pinpoint one thing. I think it's just that entire experience from the moment you get to the valet and they take your car and the hospitality of these people remembering your name and what your drinks and what you like, and then the golf course and that experience with the caddies, and have a great caddy program, and just the whole vibe and aspect. And there's even going to the rooms. I mean, you go to the rooms, there's no TVs in the rooms because they want everyone to congregate in the clubhouse and have this kind of fellowship, and it's all about bringing people that love the game together. And so it's really just this full aspect of the club.
What's the most creative excuse someone's has used to justify a bad shot at the tree farm? Have you heard anything? They're always blaming the so I'm sure you've heard something.
Gosh, that's funny. No, I haven't heard anything crazy. You just hear the caddies like to whine sometimes. They'll whine about anything. So if the divot sand's too wet or too dry and it's not coming out of their little divot filler thing, I'll hear about it, but not really much about shots. No.
That's funny. I love it. Last question for you is, if you had to choose between Ohio State football and Clemson, right? Because I'm pretty sure Clemson's not too far from where you're at now. All right. Who's winning next year?
Buckeyes are smoking them. It's not even close. Yeah. No, yeah, the South's funny. No one cares about professional sports in the South. It's college football, So down here we got Gamecocks and Clemson. It's the big rivalry. So, Colby, my superintendent, is a big Clemson fan, and then we got a couple Gamecock fans. So it's always fun when it gets to that time of year.
If there's one piece of advice that you learned in your career that you would give to somebody today, what would that be?
No, I think it's just, you gotta network with people, and you gotta just work your butt off. I mean, if I would have never worked my butt off when I worked with Kai, I would never be in the position I'm in. When I was an assistant in Cleveland, he was rebuilding bunkers, and I would stay with him, the only person on property, till dark, hauling muck out of the bottom of bunkers on a raggedy tractor and trailer. We'd stay till dark with each other every night, and I built that relationship with him. And then that stuck with us to where we're great friends today and have now worked together 3 times. So it's really just networking with people, the people you work with, superintendents, all these different people you meet. You never know down the line, the Jason Hurwitz is the world, people like that. You just got to stay in contact with these connections and use them. And like I said, work your butt off.
Actually, last question for you. I just came up with another one that I was thinking about. What's your favorite Nick Saban quote that you ever heard Phil recite?
Well, there's one that I use all the time, and I always say it's, his quote about, you got to get the right people on the bus and get the people that don't want to be there off the bus. And that goes to team building. So I actually really enjoy that quote because it's very applicable to what we do from a team building standpoint.
Yeah, I love it. I always get the Instagram, like I get retargeted. You go into the search thing and there's it's a mix at our house of Taylor Swift and then Nick Saban and Nick Saban quotes. But depending on what time of the day, I get the Nick Saban quotes to me, and usually I'll fire them off to Phil. Just get a good kick out of it. But it's either Taylor Swift or Nick Saban. So
that's awesome.
And it's not Taylor Swift for me. I'm just being open and honest about that. That's for
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm a Swiftie at heart. So where can people find you if they want to learn a little bit more about you, the tree farm, anything going on down there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Twitter, Roth Turf. Not super active on there, but like to read and peruse, and on Instagram as well, Roth Turf as well on there. And then on LinkedIn, same thing. And they can reach out just via email or telephone at any time. And I'm always happy to set people up to come play or just talk. A ton of people have reached out about some of our grassing options. So always happy to talk with people.
Awesome, man. Well, we appreciate you coming on today, and congratulations again. It's been really cool to see sort of the entrance of the tree farm into golf and the continued climb as one of those great destination places.
Yep. I appreciate it, Tyler.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Leadership on the Links. For more leadership insights and industry expertise, connect with us at bloomgolfpartners.com or follow us on social media sites LinkedIn and Instagram. If you enjoyed this episode of Leadership on the Links, we'd be thrilled if you'd leave a review or share it with someone who you know would get some value. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to stay updated. Thanks for joining us today.